Welcome to Crossroads and Cauldrons. We are two witches with jobs, families, and busy lives just like you. We talk about weaving the web of community, practicing magic, and life in the Deep South. Hi everybody, welcome to the show. I'm Selena, and this is Crossroads and Cauldrons podcast. We are getting ready for our new season. We've got a whole new season ready for you. Luna will be back on the show last episode? Soon. She's going to be back on the show. We've got lots of interesting guests coming up for you in the next few weeks, which I will be sharing about more as we come. But today, we already have an interesting guest for you. So let me introduce her because I'm super excited about this particular episode. And I'll tell you why if you don't already know. Our guest is Opal Luna, and she is a priestess of Minerva, a witch, a crocheter, and a teacher. She serves the South Florida Pagan Community, and she's an officer of the Moonpath Grove, which is a nonprofit pagan congregation in Florida. And she has written a book called Fiber Magic. I have it right here, you guys. I'm so excited. I'm a spinner, weaver, crocheter, knitter, all the things. I've dabbled with needle felting. I'm so excited to have her on the show. Welcome, Opal. How are you?
I'm very good. Thank you so much. I appreciate your fiber magician self.
I'm very enthusiastic about this topic, so I apologize. I'm a Sagittarius, so I'm going to try to bring it down a little.
But I'm a Libra, so I just love it. I love it.
Oh, good. Excellent. So tell us a little bit about yourself. How did you, let's first start with what came first, your fiber arts or your witchcraft arts?
Fiber arts.
Fiber arts came first. Well, let's talk about that. Where did you learn?
Well, my granny taught me to crochet when I was 8 years old. And even though I did not realize I was a witch at that time, because, we're born that way, but it takes a little while to realize it. Mm-hmm. I took to it as a way to calm myself. I loved going up to her room, and it was just like a different world. I could play in her button drawer, and she was teaching me all these fabulous things. And I made granny squares, and I thought she had made up the pattern because she was my granny. But right. I found out years later that her
the
granny
archetypal granny. Yeah.
Right. So I love that, and I kept it up. Sometimes you teach a child something and they'll do it for a while, and then sometimes it'll click. Like, I have 4 children. I've taught them all to crochet, but I got one that clicked. Sarah is, she knits, crochets, she does all of it. She's a crafter. So I was the crafter of the family, and I took to it, and through high school, I was lucky enough to grow up in the 70s when, crocheted vests and, and
the
handbags
shorts
were the rage, right? And so I fit right in. So I kept it up all to my adult life till I made baby blankets for my babies.
That's awesome. I learned from my mother growing up, and I was kind of the same situation. I was the only one in my generation of, cousins and stuff that learned how to do that and learned how to sew and learned how all of those things. And I'm working on teaching my children. They learn it and then they set it down for like a year. Then they want to learn it again. And I think that's part of the process. I did that as a kid. So,
you don't want to force it. You don't want it to be a chore. You want it to be a joy. They'll pick it up. They might pick it up again in adulthood and say, I used to do that with my mom, and it's a beautiful memory then. I hear it all the time when I'm doing craft shows and events, my grandmother used to do that. My mother used to do that. And, and I love to see the young people that buying the book and getting back into it and I feel like I'm the Strega Nona of the next generation of hookers.
That's really, I like that. It's got a lot of instruction in the book for beginners on with
Yes.
crochet. Like you can
Yeah.
learn to crochet from this book, which is
I
impressive.
Right. I wanted fiber magic to be like a modality of sorts, where that you can use whatever craft. Making things with your hands is the magic, because your energy is going to get into what you make. So you're making tangible expressions of your intention. So it doesn't matter if you're crocheting or knitting or spinning or, pottery or whatever. Um, so I wanted the book to be about the magic, but I had to share my passion, which is crocheting. And I figured everybody's at a level. Either you're here with your magic and you're going to bring your crafting up to it, or you're here with your crafting and you never thought of using it for your magic before. So the book is entry level on two levels, and it can balance you out. And then after that, everything you learn, then you think about, oh, I could crochet that. Like I'm
Mm-hmm.
studying the Kabbalah right now, and I'm like,
Mm-hmm.
oh, I could crochet that. Oh, the flower of life is a crochet stitch, the,
Mm-hmm.
right, and the magic um, cube, the magic square of Saturn makes a beautiful sigil that I could embroider on things, so
That's true. That's true.
right.
I love this because when I was in mystery school, that was like part of our seminary is you have to do a final project. And so my project, of course, because I'm a crazy lady, was I'm going to weave a stole for myself to wear. And I didn't know how to weave at this point, nor did I have a loom. So as I mentioned that I was crazy, there was a disclaimer to this comment. But I did, and that was part of the challenge was learn. I learned how to weave from while I was doing it from a witchcraft perspective. So my whole introduction to weaving grew out of my practice, and so there's a huge depth of connection when you're working with fiber and you're working with string. There's something special about string in particular. Like you can apply this to any of your arts, which I do, but
Mhm.
there's something special about working with materials that come from the natural world, from, animals, from plants,
Yes.
bringing it together in different ways, adding color to it, adding, your own energy, your own embellishments to it. There's something about it. There's something about it.
There's a reason why every fairy tale has a spinning wheel in it.
Mm-hmm.
That's the magic of making something out of nothing and making the string into a thing. There's that transformative magic that happens that was probably a mystery to most men, because usually the women folk did it. How did she do
It's true.
that?
It's true.
But now, across the board, we have crocheters, knitters, and that brings so much more diverse energy
Mm-hmm.
into the craft. Um, when I was, I had a point. Sorry.
It'll come back. It'll come back. That's to be expected on this show. They're used to listening to me, so no worries. No, but it's interesting to think about, okay, so I've recently read a book called Women's Work. And I don't have the full title in my brain or the author. That was terrible. I'll check on that. But it's fantastic. And it sort of follows the journey of, the work of women in fiber crafts and string and the
Right.
cloth and how useful it is for developing civilization, and the fact that it was, primarily women's work. So I
Mhm.
think it's interesting now because we're able to approach these crafts from a perspective where it's not coming necessarily out of need, but it's coming out of love of the craft and exploration of it. So I don't know. I think there's probably lessons and mysteries to be learned from both perspectives, which I think
Mhm.
is why there's so many comparisons to weaving in all mythologies all over the world. Weaving, spinning, you know what I'm saying?
Weaving.
Yeah.
Right. It goes right along with creating the world.
Mm-hmm.
You said they wove the world. You weave a story. You tell a yarn. The words are interchangeable.
Mm-hmm.
So when I was introduced to magic years later, I gravitated towards candle magic, kitchen witchery, and I realized that um, what I was doing to choose my ingredients and my correspondences is the same thing that I would do when I was planning a crocheting project. You go into your craft room and you look at all the yarns, you pick a color. I used to think it was funny that I could choose. This was before sonograms. I could go to the craft store and whatever color yarn jumped out at me, I would make a baby blanket for a baby shower, and everybody was like, "Why did you use pink and lavender? Why did you use blue?" And I said, "I don't know. I just felt like it." And then the baby was a girl or a boy. So I was like,
Oh, that's fun. Like a little bit of yarn divination. I like
no, yarn
I like
divination. Whatever you think a girl color and a boy color is. Now I don't even worry about that because they know what it's going to be. And with the modern thinking, we don't even know that until they tell us.
Well, and I think that's beautiful. I think there are a lot more options now too. Like even
In the book, my baby
20 years
blanket
ago,
is red, black, and white
right?
because those contrasting colors develop the brain, which is the most important.
Right? We've got I was making a quilt for someone's baby a few years ago, and that's what they wanted. They wanted the bright blocks of bright colors. So anyway. Sorry, we just got on a little tangent there. What was I going to say? So when did? Oh well, I guess you just sort of answered that question. When did you recognize that your fiber art practice and your witchcraft
Right. Okay.
you see what I'm saying? We're interconnected in that way. How did you, which one grew more of your practice for you? Like, how did you make that connection?
Well, I was getting started I was advancing in my crocheting skills all along, but I never really had the time because work and what have you. But I reconnected with a childhood friend on Facebook, and she invited us to the Tequesta drum circle, which is a huge drum circle that happens 4 times a year down here in South Florida, like 500 people and the biggest bonfire ever, and it's really cool.
Oh wow.
And I thought it was great, and my husband hit the ground running. Well, he woke up the next morning, wanted to make a drum. So now he makes handmade drums. You might see some in the background there. But
Oh, that's awesome.
yeah, so we're a crafty family, so he had his magical path. He was gone. I was thinking, what? I don't know. So it was New Year's Eve, and I was thinking about my dad and how he used to say his mother would make soup on New Year's Day. You make pasta fagioli on New Year's Day. So I started making soup with whatever I did, and I'm stirring like I'm stirring a cauldron, and I'm stirring and I'm singing, and I suddenly thought, I wonder if there's Italian witchcraft.
Oh yeah,
So,
for
so,
sure.
so I Googled it. Next thing you know,
Yeah.
I'm down that road, and that's when I started making candles and kitchen witchery and all that, and then kind of combined the two, because not magic, someone said to me, you know, one of you, and she didn't know if it was my husband tying the drums or me crocheting, but she said, one of you should look into knot magic. Okay, so I did. And that was, down the road I went. I found my niche. And I was always making like prayer shawls and things like that to comfort people, baby blankets. I'd put blessings in them. And I just said out loud one day at work, this must be my ministry, because somebody felt better after I gave them a blanket. And a couple of the more evangelistic girls in the deli were like, "Amen," and they were like, "Yes, yes." Like I was, so there you go. I said, "Okay, I've been initiated."
That's really fantastic. Okay. Knot magic and cord magic and fabric magic. Is that a word? It is to me. Like creating textiles.
Fiber magic, and that's
Fiber magic.
that's
Yeah.
why I use the word fiber, because
it goes
it's like
through all
it's more than just like what something's made of. It's like down to the molecules that created it. It's like the fiber of someone's being, or your moral fiber. It means more than just the physical. When you're talking about some nice cotton that you're going to spin, where did it grow? What
right.
kind of land did it come from? Down to the minerals in the soil, all add a correspondence to the finished piece. So the spinner would have their type of fiber magic, then give it to the weaver, who would create the next layer of the fiber magic. Give it to the crocheter that might anoint it with an oil before she begins. Who knows?
And the finished project, you've got such great ideas in here for ways to okay, we're going to do this a lot. I feel like this is going to happen a lot. So it's a winding path through my thoughts. So you've got a lot of things in here that I really like, because you kind of strip it all the way back to the beginning, which I think is really helpful for people. And I teach, and a lot of times people sort of assume that people know things that they don't necessarily know. And I love that you have just sort of taken it all the way back to the foundations, and you're talking about preparing yourself to do your crafting work, preparing your space like you would approach a ritual, which,
Yes.
of course,
Exactly.
we think, of course, but people don't necessarily put that together, and you create a sacred space, and you go in with that mindset, and you think about your timing and your correspondences and all of those things for everything you're crafting, because it is a spell when you get done, whether you intend it to be or not. So you're imbuing that project with energy and correspondence, whether you realize it or not. So might as well do it consciously and intentionally. And you're right. Like you said, that was your ministry, and that really kind of struck a chord with me, because that's kind of how I see my own work. That's how I perceive energy, but a lot of people perceive energy that way too, as literal strings of light, as strands of light. And when you work with this stuff with your hands, it gives you greater aptitude for manipulating those strands of light as well, those fibers as well. At least for me, that's what I learned from approaching particularly with learning to weave, because I already knew how to knit and I already knew all those other things, and I had learned them from childhood, so I didn't learn them in the same way. But for weaving, it was really bringing together a lot of what I do energetically, and it's helped me reach other people with that. How do you perceive like energy, working with energy, spell casting, and does it relate to your fiber magic? Do they feed and support each other?
Absolutely. It's all about energy that you collect, whether you're doing Reiki or making a spell bag, or how much more energy would get in there if you actually create the bag before you put the spell into it. You know, that makes it part of the spell. You're sometimes spending hours, days with this project. It becomes a child. You know, like when I make a little dragon, I always like to start at the nose so I can nuzzle it while I'm doing the next part, and I talk to it, and you know, it creates a true connection to that item. Now, when it goes to the person, it's for their health or their courage or what have you. That beam of light, like you said, that string, that invisible string, is still attached to me. It's still part of me. And there are times when I'm doing something else and I'll think about that little dragon and I'll go, oh, maybe that little dragon needs a zhuzh. Somebody's having a day, you know, and they need a little something. And I figure since they accepted the dragon from me, they would certainly accept the maintenance plan. There's no extra cost.
Right? You get the spell warranty with it.
Right. So I can send, you know, a little bit more of my energy to that dragon, and thereby it's sent to the person.
Wow. So it almost acts in a way like a servitor. Like you feed it and it does the thing, and you can continue to feed it because of that connection of energy that you have from creating it.
Right.
That's beautiful. Now my mind is just like, I have so many ideas now. Where will the time come from for these? I don't know.
Please, welcome to my world. If I just had, I
Right?
want Mrs. Weasley's knitting needles. So I
Yes. Just set them to the side, let them do the thing. But you know, I think that's something that, two things. I think people, I don't know if it's particularly now. I think it's probably always been like that. It's just more obvious now. People want the quick thing. They want the quick magic. They want the Mrs. Weasley's knitting needles. You know, I mean, and I don't blame them. I want that too. But there's so much depth of wisdom that you learn as you're doing any kind of magic. But you know, I guess it's easier to sort of see because you have something tangible that's growing. If you're doing a fiber craft or something like that, where you're building something, but you get to physically put in the work. You're putting in the work, and that adds to the work, the effort, the energy, and the time that it takes add to the outcome and to the power of that spell. And I think people forget that a lot.
Yeah.
But that's so easy to connect back to when you have a project that you're physically growing. You don't have to focus on it so much. Have I done this, you know, every night for the past 3 months or whatever you're supposed to do for your spell? You know, that's easier to pick up and you just take off where you were. And that's those strings, I'm going to say strings, depending on whatever your craft is.
Right.
It holds the intention from when you started, you know?
Yeah.
So it's so easy to just pick up, build on it, work 10 minutes, and you're constantly putting effort in. If we did all of our spell work that way,
Right.
what couldn't we
What
accomplish?
can we get done? Oh,
right?
boy.
Except that we all have different ideas of what that should be. So maybe it's a blessing. I don't know.
Yeah, that would be a little chaotic, you know. Leave it to the crafters. Let the crafters.
Right? Let us do what we do. But I think it's a beautiful thing to be able to see your spell, your progress, whatever it is, your blessing manifesting physically before your very eyes.
It's very satisfying. Very, you know, it really is, to the sense of accomplishment that you get when it's done. And that's why, you know, this book is meant for beginners with a little intermediate challenges, especially in crochet, because you're maybe trying some new skills on both ends, magic skills, crocheting skills. And so if you have that little, the rune bag or magic bag, that little magic bag that you can make in just an hour, you know, it's not that much for you. you know, but then you can take those skills and get a more difficult pattern, and you can carry on from there as you're ready to advance, you know, and your skills will just grow up and up and up magically,
Exactly.
and magically and craftily, because if you learn a new craft and
Mhm.
you're thinking about the magic, you learn a new magic and you're thinking, how can I use this in my craft? You know, they'll work hand in hand, and that way you stay magic every day. It's not like something you just do on Friday nights when you go to the Grove or what have you. You
Mhm.
know, it's part of your everyday life. I know I crochet every day. I don't know about anybody else.
I am doing, I've got a project
Something
on
every
the
day.
loom. I've got a knitting project. I was going to get it out, but it's like at the very end of the, I'm going to have to change yarn. And so I don't want to do that on the show. But anyway,
Okay.
but are you suggesting that we should practice? Like
Yeah.
practice our craft and practice our craft?
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah.
Practice.
I
You
harp on
know,
this so much. Do the thing. Do the
just do
thing.
it. Do it. Do it before you're ready. I have a student.
Mhm.
I teach in person too. I have a student who I taught to crochet maybe 5 years ago,
Mhm.
and she just went off on her own thing. She didn't listen to me at all. I guess she kind of half listened to me. And she was just doing things. She would make the little bag and it would end up a volcano, or she'd make the little scarf and it end up a banana. I don't know. It was just, and she said, my fiber magic is transformation. I never know what I'm going to get. Well, now, after practicing and
Mhm.
practicing, and you would see her holding the yarn to her forehead, just like really, you know, getting into it, you know,
Mhm.
and practicing. Now she can actually make things look like she intends them to be made, because she explored the yarn and the hook
Mhm.
and saw what they could do and what she could do with it. And she wasn't worried that it didn't look like somebody else's. And I
Mhm.
admire her so much for that, because I hear that a lot. Oh, mine doesn't look like yours. I
Of
said,
course
well,
not.
I've been doing this for 55 years. If I wasn't good at it by now, I should have tried something else. You know what I mean? You
Mhm.
know, you can't compare to anybody else. You're going to do your craft. It's going to be perfect for you. And so I think that's a good reason to start from the beginning and just
Mhm.
look at it through new eyes and start crocheting for the first time, but magically. And see what you
Exactly.
come with, you know? You might be inspired to do things that you've never done before.
I agree with you. It's so important, no matter what you're doing, to play and experiment. And I think people lose a lot of the fun of why we do these things. You know, because you're curious. We're curious creatures, and we like to explore, and we like to experiment, and we like to play. That's how we learn as children and as adults. We learn through play, and people forget that. And I
Yeah.
think it's important to when you are in the presence of someone who has had 55 years of experience and theirs looks different than yours, you know, don't beat yourself up. Say, wow, that's a goal. You know, what do you have to teach me? You know, and listen to that wisdom, whether you use it or not. That's up to you.
Yeah.
But, you know, absorb and experience and learn from those who have been there before. Then you know it and you can take it wherever you want from there,
And
you know?
understand, I do the same thing. I look at
Mhm.
other crocheters and I say, oh man, I wish I could do it like that. Because that's just human nature, you
Mhm.
know? And there's sometimes I'm halfway through a project and I'm like, I'm hating this. This is not turning out at all. I don't like this at all. But
Mhm.
at one time in my life, I would have given up. But
Mhm.
now I push through. And then on the other end, I'm like, oh, well, this isn't so bad after all. I'm loving this, you know? And
Mhm.
so there's so many lessons to learn.
Absolutely. And that's where you lose a lot of people because in the middle, it looks weird. And I paint as well. And you got to get to the ugly stage. Then you're on the right path. You have to keep going through the
Right,
ugly
right.
stage.
That's
You know?
good. Hey, congratulations. You're at the ugly stage. That means you're halfway there.
Exactly. Exactly. And there's so many people, and I say this a lot, so I'm just going to keep doing it. I do that. I get people spinning. Like I have several students that I have taught to spin, which is very addictive. And that's my goal in life, is just to creep. I'm like a spider. I just want to
We're
creepily
pushers.
spread. Yeah, that's exactly, fiber pushers. But one of my students does gorgeous needle felting, and she's been doing tarot. She's been doing the tarot. She's a fantastic artist, and pretty
Oh,
much everything she picks up. So she'll bring her spinning wheel over and we'll spin. She's got my daughter embroidering or doing cross stitch. So that's exciting. Anyway, I got off topic. So my topic was in witchcraft, we use so many analogies about weaving, and we compare it to weaving and spinning the threads of fate, and weaving the tapestry of the cosmos and all those great things. And I think when it stays very intellectual and very theoretical, it's a beautiful analogy. But when you actually physically get your hands into doing those types of crafts that our ancestors have done for thousands and thousands of years, there is a mystery there that you cannot understand or even begin to understand until you get your hands in it. And people who are only theoretic listen to me and they're like, no, 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 I understand. Try it, do it, and see
right,
what you learn. Because there's a reason that those people used those analogies. And it wasn't just because it's a beautiful picture, you
right.
know?
Yeah, it really meant something at one time. And you can go back and actually find your spiritual roots by looking at the country that your ancestors are from. Look at their ancient arts.
Mm-hmm.
Look at that, and then start doing it. Try to recreate some of it, and you will get more energy from that. There'll be ancestors that are like, oh, look, she's, needle pointing or whatever it was like. And you'll make spiritual connections with ancestors that you're not going to make any other way, because that was their life.
Mm-hmm.
You had to finish that blanket by winter or you
Yeah.
were going to freeze. It
Mm-hmm.
wasn't just something you could throw in the closet and think about when you wanted to do it again.
So we had a little bit of technical issues, but we're
Too
back
much
now.
energy. It was too
Too
much
much.
energy.
It was too much. We're too excited. Um,
Yes.
so
Woosah.
I know, right? So I was talking about different parts of the process of creating tapestry and textiles and fiber crafts of all sorts. Different parts of that process were done at different times of the year. You had mentioned doing things in the winter because you do, because nothing else is happening, or you need it by the winter time, so you have to get it done. They would have specialized things that would happen at different times of the year, like the shearing of the sheep would happen in the spring, and the preparation of all the fiber would happen throughout the rest of the year, and all the spinning, and then the weaving would happen during the winter when they didn't have to grow crops and all of that stuff.
Right.
So it's an interesting way, if you want to go through the whole process of that, to really connect with your land and with the seasons and with the cycles of what's happening in your area, which is great, because I don't sit down in the wintertime. And if I was like, I'm going to do all my knitting in the winter, sit on my tail, do all the spinning in the summertime when I can be outside, ooh, or in the fall, hey, fall. Um,
Right.
so that's an interesting way to work with it. Although I don't think I want to go through all of the prepping of fleece and washing it and scouring it and all of the combing it and that stuff. Maybe I do. I think I do, but I don't know when or where I would actually do that.
Yeah, it would be fun to have a friend who owns a farm so you could just show up there for a couple of hours. And there are
Right.
farms around. There is an alpaca farm in Southwest Florida, I believe
Mm-hmm.
she owns alpacas. You could find it
Oh,
and at
they're
different time
everywhere.
of the year, right?
We've
Different
got
times of
one
the year.
here.
Yeah, and you could
Yeah,
visit and you maybe volunteer to work for a day and just see what it was really like. So that would really be a physical connection to what it would be like. You know,
absolutely.
here in South Florida, it's
Hmm.
kind of difficult to connect to some of the holidays because Imbolc happens might be 80 degrees. You know,
Hmm.
and you're thinking about 500 years ago in Northern Europe where
Hmm.
they're hoping to see a bud. You know, it's like a different mindset. But if you take the crafts of the different Sabbats,
Hmm.
like corn dollies and Bridget's crosses and things like that, they're done because that was the material that was available at
Hmm.
that time. So if you think about it that way, you can form a connection to what it would have been like to be in our ancestors. Here we can use that. Like once you know the rules, you can break them a little bit,
Hmm.
and make your corn dolly out of palm fronds,
Hmm.
you know,
Yeah.
and make it your own. But you could still, it's a way to respect the ones that came before us.
Hmm.
I like
Yeah,
that.
and the land that we're actually living on. And it's interesting. I'm in Mississippi, so because of the jet stream, our holidays are pretty, in Imbolc, we're starting to get, daffodils and things like that are starting to come up already, and by the time Ostara's here, all my azaleas are blooming. So it
Beautiful.
is, I feel those seasons pretty much when they're
Yeah.
supposed to be, which seems odd, but, in Mississippi that works, but not everywhere, and,
Yes.
my friends in New England are literally just now getting crocuses. Literally today and yesterday, I'm seeing crocuses. And, we had those way back at the beginning of February, end of January. So you gotta work with where your land is right now because that's where you're living. And you're absolutely right. Take those techniques that we've learned that have been passed on to us from our ancestors and apply them. Because I guarantee wherever they happen to be have been living, they would have been using what they had in their area.
Exactly. That's what they
You
would
know.
have been doing. We have a annual ritual for protection during hurricane season here
Mm-hmm.
in South Florida. Because that's what's important. That's what would have happened. And so that's what we do. It may not be necessary up there, but you might have some. In the far north, you'd have something for blizzards.
Yeah.
Because whatever that's what witchcraft was. It was not really a religion. It was more of a lifestyle where you were just trying to keep your family alive,
Mm-hmm.
warm and fed and healthy.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And that can really bring your practice home to you. Like I think a lot of witchcraft is just bringing consciousness to whatever it is you're doing. If you go work in an office, do that consciously and it can become part of your practice. Just like with your fiber arts, if you're doing that consciously, look at how much power you can imbue into your work and how much healing and blessing you can send out by doing it consciously. I think that's what I'm taking away from this book is just really really opening your awareness to everything that you do you know
Oh, I'm so glad. That was my purpose. That was my idea
it
to
is
present
it,
it as a magical path. Yeah.
it does. And I have to show, I don't know if this is going to show on the camera, but I'm going to try. I love the in between pages because the
We do.
yarn, it's so beautiful. Like everything in here, I'm like, oh, that's pretty. So
Oh,
buy
they
this
did a
book.
great job. Llewellyn did a great job. Like it took them like over a year after I finished writing all the words to get the book to where it was actually published because they took all those beautiful pictures. I made everything and shipped it to them, and then they did all those beautiful pictures. And just the paper looks like it's handmade
I
paper.
know.
It's just.
They did a great job. It's absolutely beautiful. It's beautiful.
I'm very
So
proud of it.
you have a lot of other things going on that you do as well. Do you want to share with us what else you have going on in your area?
The Grove is a 501c3 pagan congregation, and we do all of the Sabbaths. We meet every Friday night at Love and Light Spiritual Emporium, but we Zoom. So we have people from all over the world Zooming with us. So if you ever want to join us, we are on the Broward Events, Pagan Events Meetup,
I'm writing this down.
Moonpath Grove
Moonpath
at
Grove.
Broward Pagan Events. And
All
we're
right.
on Meetup. And you'll have a link and you'll Zoom with us. And you can come to our Friday meetings. And we also Zoom our rituals. This Saturday, we're
Mm-hmm.
going to be doing the Ostara ritual. And it was given to me this year. And so, of
Yay.
course, it is going to be a reenactment of the Quinquatris, the 5-day spring celebration for Minerva's birthday, which
Oh,
is
nice.
that it just happened to land on March 19th. And
Mm-hmm.
so my husband is playing Bacchus. And we have two other friends, Mars and Venus. So my brothers and I are going to be doing the ritual, and the first part of it will be all poetry and song and weaving for Minerva, and then my brothers will take over. And there will be some gladiatorial fights. It's going to be so much fun. We
Oh, that
really
sounds
have
like
a
fun.
lot of fun. We have it, yeah. So that's what's going on. I'm busy all the time. They're preparing for Friday nights.
Mm-hmm.
I'm ready to do part 4 of a 4-part series on environmental elemental environmentalism. That's how it goes.
Oh,
So
tell us about that.
I did Earth, and we
Mm-hmm.
talked about all the magic of Earth and then how we can save the Earth. And then we did air and all the magic, air magic, and then what we can do to keep from polluting the air. And the last week we did fire. That was fun. And we talked to the fire tender at the drum circle and everything. And then so the next one will be water. It'll be next month will be water. So
Well,
if you
that'll be
go to
perfect timing for that because it will probably be raining.
probably be raining. I hope so.
Wouldn't that be
Get your
perfect?
moon water, get your moon water and your sun water and your
Right?
ready. And so I'm going to be doing that on one of the Friday nights. But you just look at the Broward meetup, and you can come and anything interests you, come join us.
Oh, that's so exciting. I'm going to check that out. Of course, this Saturday, I'm also doing a star
Of
ritual,
course.
so I'm going to miss that. But how exciting. And this episode will air closer to May, so I'm sure you'll have Beltane
Right.
and Letha and all the other Sabbaths
Yes,
for
we'll be
people to check
doing
out.
all kinds of things. And also, if you want to go to the Fiber Magic Coven
Mm-hmm.
on Facebook, that is a open to the public group. And once a month, we Zoom. And so we can show off all our works and all the crafters. And we've had people from Australia and Puerto Rico and Canada. And we just hang out. It's just, a stitch and sip. Bring your own sip.
Awesome. Awesome.
And we show off our magical works. We talk about magic and crafting.
Oh, that's awesome. I'm definitely going to sign up for that. That sounds beautiful. My best friend and I do, we have it's our bestie chat time. And she lives in Indiana. So we have to like Zoom and we sit.
Uh-huh.
And usually she's knitting or spinning or something like that. And I'm working the loom. So it's wonderful. I can't wait. I'm going to join in and see what you guys are getting up to in there. Yay. And I hope our listeners will too. And if you don't know how to do anything, if you don't know how to do something fibery, come anyway and learn something.
The Fiber Magic Coven has more than just fiber artists. We've got some wordsmiths, and we've got a photographer that takes pictures of the moon for us every month. And so she weaves light and shadows to create beautiful pictures of the moon. See, you can spin.
Oh, that's beautiful.
You can spin anything.
You can spin it any kind of way. That's right.
Spin it any way.
Perfect. That's beautiful.
Just go to fibermagic.com and there's links to get everywhere.
Awesome. And I'm going to put links to all of that in the show notes as well. So if you're listening,
Nice.
you can check in the show notes and you'll have links to look at there. So this is like my favorite question for guests that are on the show.
Okay.
What is the future project that you're most excited about? Now, it doesn't have to be anything that's even feasible or may ever happen in your lifetime. It doesn't have to be anything you've started or signed on to do. Just like, if you could do a thing, what would your dream thing be?
Well, whew,
It's a small question, no
it's
big.
just small. It's small. Well, the next thing that I want to accomplish, that student of mine, the transformative fiber magician,
Mhm.
she writes stories, and she likes to write stories about all of my crocheted characters.
Oh, that's fun.
So I would like to do a book with her that has her story and
Uh-huh.
then the patterns of all the characters in the story.
Oh, that's fun. I like that.
I would like to do that, and I would like it to be published by some publisher somewhere. Call me.
Right? I'm available. I'm taking calls. Oh,
So
that's
that's
beautiful.
a project that I want to see happen.
I love
Absolutely.
collaborative projects like that. And I think, going back to weaving analogies always, weaving community and creating spaces to bring different perspectives together is wonderful. I like to spin yarn and then give it to someone else to knit
To
and make
crochet.
something out of it, crochet
Yes.
something out of it, and, see what it becomes. And it's almost always
Yes.
better than whatever I could have thought of on my own.
And did it become that because of the energy that you put into it? Because when you get a piece of yarn, a
That's
hank of
true.
yarn, you're like, oh, what does this feel like? Does it feel like a poppet? Does it feel like a medicine bag? What does it feel
Mhm.
like?
You're right. You're absolutely right. I have like a whole cabinet of yarn that hasn't told me what it wants to be yet. And we sit down at the spinning wheel, and as much as you want, and you're like, okay, I'm going to make a lace weight, and it's going to be 2-ply, and it's going to have, it's going to be worsted, whatever. And then the yarn is like, actually, well, actually, this is what we're going to be doing today. So you have to follow the lead of the fiber. And now you've got me thinking, I wonder if some of that is coming from the influences of the other people that had processed it or the animals that it came from. Like, it has its own consciousness and its own expression and its own, it's part of that collaborative effort, the tool itself. Okay, I'm very excited now because I'm having
It
lots of
will
thoughts in my
become what
head.
it was meant to be.
Exactly. And that's such a great thing for us to think about as well. To
Yeah, it
apply to
makes
our
you
own life.
breathe, and yeah, this whole the whole process of creating this book has forced me to slow down and think about things step by step. Especially writing something like for a beginner in crochet, a lot of things that I would take for granted, a newbie wouldn't intuitively know, and
Yeah.
so I had to really think about, and that is the challenge of writing patterns.
Oh
So,
gosh. Yes.
I'm going to continue to practice and improve my pattern writing. And, who knows? I'll be writing patterns for all kinds of stuff soon.
That's a beautiful thing about teaching, though, is that you have to break apart and put back together, which is like the whole process of witchcraft anyway. Because you don't even think about, like, well, this is how I wrap the yarn around my pinky, and this is how I keep
Just
my
wrap it around your
tension, and
hand. Well,
you know,
how?
right.
Right.
And I'm watching my kids like, I don't understand. And I'm just like, you just do it. No, you
Why
don't.
is
You
it
have to
that
learn it.
easy for you? Oh, I get it. Yeah. I get
And that's how I started.
it.
I save a lot of my early spinnings because what are you going to make with those anyway? But because they're hideous, and I like to show them to people and be like, this is how I started. Look at it.
Listen,
Look at
you
this
get a lot
gorgeous
of money
mess.
for those. those stick and pins on Etsy. You get a lot of money for those.
I know. That's what I tell
I
people.
meant to do this.
Save it because you can sell it as an art yarn if you want to. But I keep mine to show people this is the hot mess I came from, and you learn so fast. Because, people do. They sort of give up too soon. Don't give up, you guys. Go
Relax.
create.
Shake out your shoulders. Isn't that like the one thing that you got to get the student to do? They're
just
so
breathe.
tense. They're like this. The yarn is squeaking. I know. It's squeaking.
Yes.
Like, shake out your shoulder, relax. And that's why I put in there those preparatory, like the chain stitch spell where you chain and then boom, let it go. People love and hate that. Because they're like, but I just made this. I can't just unmake it. Yeah, you can. Come on, it's gonna feel good. Just let
pull
it
out.
go. Let it go. And they're like, oh, yeah, that was nice. Let's do that again.
I think that's beautiful. That's a beautiful thing because it's hard for people to even just let anything go, really. So that's good practice. That's good practice for life, y'all.
It's a metaphor for life. You made a mistake 4 rows back. Are you going to let that mistake affect the rest of your project, or are you just going to go back and fix it? Or maybe
you can get over it and move on.
Maybe that's what appliques are for.
Right? This is why embroidery was invented. We're just going to hide that missed stitch. No problem. Oh my gosh. I do a lot of lace knitting, so I pin it all out and try to drop down. I've gotten very good at, because I've made so many mistakes that I've had to fix. I'm pretty good at getting back to it and fixing it.
Yeah. I've never really taken to knitting. My daughter knits, but I'm just a hooker. What can I say?
Look, crochet is what I started with, and I love it because I don't know, you just get into a rhythm and a speed with it that you can't necessarily you can if you're just knitting just basic stitches, but when you're knitting lace, you can't. It's it's a stressful the whole time.
Right, it's coming off. It's coming off.
Yes. So lace knitting is an exercise in how do you handle anxiety, but it's still a learning experience, but it's not meditative like spinning and, crochet and things like that. Well, I mean, no, it's not. It's not. You got to stay focused. But it's been so exciting talking to you. And I'm definitely going to log in and join the Fiber Magic Facebook Coven. Fiber Coven. There it is.
Yes.
Words.
Fiber Magic Coven.
I'm going to do that.
Welcome you. We look forward to seeing you there.
Wonderful. I hope you continue to put out information for artists and creators and fiber witches of the world. This was really beautiful. I was so excited. I got a box of books from Marcus at Llewellyn, and I was looking through, and I was like, oh, and this one popped out, and I was like, oh, I need her first. Please let me get her on the show. So it's been wonderful talking to you, and I so appreciate having you. Everybody go check out the book, Fiber Magic. Check out the links that are in the notes, and thank you for being here.
I appreciate it. Thank you so much for having me.
Anytime.
All right. Crafty.
Yes. All right, everyone. That's our show, and thank you for listening. Blessed be. Thank you all so much for listening, and don't forget to rate, review, and subscribe through your favorite podcast provider. It helps us get our podcast in front of more listeners just like you. If you'd like to get in touch with us, you can leave us a voicemail by clicking the link in the description of this episode, and you can always find us on Facebook and Instagram by searching for Crossroads and Cauldrons Podcast.